Today, we're looking at a blue ink by Bookbingers, the Blue Racer Snake. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps in the description down below, so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram. And if you're new here, I do fountain pen ink reviews every single day, so I would invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Platinum 3776 with a broad nib, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take the notes for this video. I used 3 papers to standardize in some of my writing samples: Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. There are additional writing samples that'll come later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X 450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X 750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is a little bit, maybe just a tad darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice amount of darker letters throughout this writing that shows that it has it nicely. 8 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. Now as far as shading, what you see is some lighter letters throughout, mostly very dark, occasionally lighter, like the UI of Quick. Inside Fox, it gets a little bit lighter than it started and that it ends. 8 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show no color variation, although there is some in the writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding and normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. 12 seconds to dry. Medium is same tone as the extra fine and the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 16 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show no color variation, and there was none. And Rhodia, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a little darker than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some very gentle in and out shading. It's just it's like a dark mid-tone and a dark tone. 9 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows no color variation, and to be honest, it took work to find it on the extra fine. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see a very nice purple at the bottom that works its way up, and then it gives us that kind of highlighter blue, a little bit darker than the highlighter blue that we've frequently seen with inks that help bring in that shading. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and it does sort of maybe want to start bonding on the bottom, but not a whole lot. There's not a tremendous difference between the two other than the original one, all of the purple pushed up, and this one, the purple's pushing up very slowly. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, even though there's a bit of some spread that occurs, I feel safe using this in a note-taking situation because it's very readable. It handled itself very well, especially when you look at what happens with water. That is completely reactivating and lifting it off the page. That's all that it took to get it out of my pen, so this was very well behaved. Pen flush, strangely, didn't do as much as water did, but there's always the chance that when I blot the paper towel down that I'm sort of holding the ink there. 1/3 bleach solution completely removes it from the paper, but I didn't need it to get it out of my pen. I test ink viscosity or flow by using a tilt test, and I'll link that somewhere here. And for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Put the data onto a bell curve or standard deviation for it to be easily understood. Bookbinger's Blue Racer Snake has a viscosity of 2.45, making it normal. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. I find this by using my writing samples that were done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Bookbinder's Blue Racer Snake has an average dry time of 11 seconds, making it a fast-drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Bookbinder's Blue Racer, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice pink, something a snake could go after, so I chose Flamingo Pink. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia and Franklin Christoph paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia paper, not to look at performance changes that can happen, but more to see what kind of tone changes we might go through for being on yellow paper. And the good news is this is a very opaque ink. It is really unaffected for being on yellow paper, which is great for those that work in that professional environment where they're writing on yellow paper and it's important that their writing is in specific colors. Horrible workplaces that do things like that. Franklin Christoph paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a little bit darker than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. 4 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. 6 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any, and that's what I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Bookbinder's Blue Racer Snake? As I sat down to start writing the review, I really couldn't think of any words to put on the page. And then I put this ink into the pen, and it truly cured that writer's block that I was having. What nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? To get a really good blue with some decent shading, you want to use a medium to dry pen, preferably a broad, and a stub looks fantastic. If you've enjoyed this video and made it this far, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and if you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down and tell me why. Thanks for watching.